Okay, good evening, everybody. Sorry, that whole Blue Jays game last night threw me off. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the council public meeting for Tuesday, October the 28th. I would like to read a public hearing statement before we get started. If a person, public body, or specified person does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Richmond Hill in respect to a proposed official plan amendment or zoning bylaw amendment, the person, public body, or specified person is not entitled to appeal the decision of the City Council to the Ontario Land Tribunal and may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. I need a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Davidson, Councillor Shu, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Disclosures of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof. Seeing none. We have one item today on scheduled business, which is a request for comments for zoning bylaw amendment, North Elgin Centre, which is a whole bunch of addresses around 10993 Yonge Street. So we're going to have the staff start us off, and then we'll give an opportunity for the delegate to speak, and then we'll open it up after that to members of the public. So Ferdy, I presume that's you going to bat for the staff. That's a whole baseball theme, and Mr. Minette, you're on deck, so get into the on deck circle. Go ahead.
Good evening. Are the slides up? Okay. Good evening, Mayor West, members of council, and members of the public. This evening's public meeting involves a zoning bylaw amendment application by NEC Inc. to permit a high-density mixed-use development on lands referred to as 11,005 Yonge Street. I know there's multiple addresses, but it's easier to refer it as that. Subject, map 2, or I should say slide 2, please. Thank you. The subject lands are located at the northeast corner of Yonge Street and Bernard Avenue. The property has approximately 151 meters of frontage along Yonge Street, approximately 119 meters frontage along Bernard Avenue, and an area of about 1.9 hectares. The lands support an existing commercial plaza. The lands abut the Elgin East Channel lands, which is a Rouge River tributary to the and existing townhouses to the north, 5-story retirement home to the east, Bernard Avenue to the south, and Yonge Street to the west. Next slide, please. Okay, the lands are designated key development area under the city's official plan. Permitted uses include high-density residential uses, office, commercial, retail, community uses, parks, and urban open spaces. The lands are located within the Yonge Bernard Key Development Area Secondary Plan and are more specifically identified within the Corridor Character Area. Within the Corridor Character Area, maximum density permitted is 5 FSI and height is regulated by angular plane. The Elgin East Channel lands, which are located along the north limit of the site, are designated greenway system under the secondary plan and natural core under the OP and contain key natural heritage and hydrological features as defined by the Oak Ridges Marine Conservation Plan, as well as hazard lands. The secondary plan, however, provides policies that permit reductions to the buffer from these features if it can be demonstrated through the submission of a natural heritage evaluation and supporting studies to the satisfaction of the Conservation Authority and the city. The secondary plan provides also a preferred road configuration for the subject lands, as shown on the slide. However, the applicant is proposing an alternate concept, which is under consideration. In terms of zoning, the property is currently zoned Key Development Area Mixed Use Zone, Open Space Zone, and overlay, and holding under zoning bylaw 111-17 as amended. Permitted uses under the Key Development Area Mixed Use Zone include a broad range of residential, commercial, institutional, and public authority uses. Within the Open Space Zone, overlay. Uses are limited to conservation, forestry, public authority, and stormwater facilities. The holding provision limits uses to generally existing non-residential uses, buildings, and additions thereto. Next slide, please. Okay, the applicant is proposing to redevelop the lands for a high-density, mixed-use residential commercial development. The development is proposed in two phases. Phase 1, comprising the east half of the land, proposes to construct two buildings, 18 and 24 stories, with a combined total of 632 units and 1,582 square meters of non-residential gross floor area. Phase 2, which is proposed for the future, will consist of two buildings, 33 and 20 stories, with a combined total of 782 units, 1,963 square meters of non-residential gross floor area. The lands will be serviced by an internal private stratified road with public access connected to Yonge Street and Bernard Avenue, and will continue to provide access to the abutting Richmond Hill retirement residence to the east. Next slide, please. Okay. For phase 1, the subject of this amendment, it is proposed the private road will end as a turning circle, with the west half of the site being used for temporary construction, staging, storage, and parking. The proposed development will incorporate 2 levels of underground parking and 1 level of structured parking. Amenity space is proposed externally on the 7th floor of Building A and internally within Building B on the ground level. A stratified public park, or urban public square, is proposed at the rear of Building A, adjacent to the Elgin East Channel lands. Though the park is not specifically planned for in the secondary plan, staff will engage with the applicant to explore the use of this space as an urban plaza, being a privately owned, publicly accessible space. It is further proposed that phase 1 will meet the city's affordability targets through a mix and range of condo and rental tenure and unit sizes. Next slide, please. This slide provides a rendering of the proposed buildings, elevations, site layout, and amenities for phase 1, as well as an outline of phase 2 buildings. With respect to the zoning bylaw amendment application, the applicant is seeking council's approval to remove the open space zone overlay, introduce site-specific standards as described in the staff report, and remove the holding provision over phase 1 portion of the lands. The application was circulated by staff to internal departments and external agencies for review and comment. Please note that the purpose of the report is to provide council and the public with an overview of the development proposal has been structured for information purposes only, with the recommendation that all comments be referred to staff for further consideration. Thank you, and this concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Mr. Manette, if you want to come up and speak, you've got 5 minutes to address council.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor West and members of council. My name is Michael Manette from M-Plan, and I'm the planning consultant for NEC, who are the owners of the property. I won't duplicate what Ferdy has provided, so I wanted to provide you with some additional information and then be available to answer any questions you might have. The first thing to note is that this is a minor zoning bylaw amendment as directed by staff, and the matters that are before you with respect to the minor zoning bylaw amendment, as Ferdy indicated, is to remove the H holding symbol from the by rezoning part of the subject's lands from Key Development Area KDA H and Open Space OS Overlay Zone to Key Development Area. And if we could pull up from our package, I'm not going to go through all of the slides. If we can go through, please go to number 2, which is it's a bit more of a blow up of the actual rendering. And I just wanted to point out, actually the slide 2 would be the next one. At the bottom left is the numbers that I have. So if just to show you the shaded area, or the light shaded area, that's phase 2. So that's the phase 1 development is the one where you see the actual renderings of the buildings. And you'll note this is looking at it from the north. So we have the channel in the foreground with the townhouses, and then looking south, we have a 6-story component of the tower, which would be the northeast tower. That is the intended rental building. And you can see there's a lower 6-story portion with a rooftop amenity area. And then to the north of that, there is a plaza area with green space and open area for the public. The most important thing to consider is that we have fixed locations for access that which will be used in the future for the future development. The one on the right side, which is the north east part of the site, northwest, sorry, is the access to Yonge Street, which is shown as a right in, right out. And then we have a fixed access onto Bernard. And the reason that's a fixed access, which I'll show you in a moment, is that we have an easement to provide access to 70 Bernard, which is the seniors' home. So this gives you the context of the type of building. We haven't gone to the full height that the angular plane would provide for, and we're within the 5.0 maximum density for the total project. If we can go to the next slide. That's a current air photo showing the existing development on the site. And as you can see on the west side or the left, we have the existing BRT in place. And we have the Yonge Street access at the top, and you can see the channel to the north of the existing development area. And the plaza buildings go right up against the edge of that area. The request to remove the OS zone is with respect to there's a man-made channel, and there is some vegetation in it. But the TRCA has agreed that there is no lands for the floodplain within the subject site. Those are all contained within that channel. And so there's no reason to have a setback from that. So we're asking for the removal of the OS. If we go to the next slide, number 4. This is the survey of existing uses, and it also, although it's hard to see without blowing it up, it contains the identification of services along Bernard Avenue for sewer water, so that the first phase of development can be connected to those existing services for the purposes of servicing phase 1. If we go, I'm going to skip quickly through because I don't have too much time, and I wanted to show a few points. If we can go directly, I'll just to slide number 11 on the bottom left. And this is important to note. This is called a phase 1 easement plan. You can see in the red, that is the easement requirement to continue the connection to the seniors residence. And then there's a blue area, which is the proposed first part of an internal road, which we're referring to as a WUNRF. This is a public road. It's a private road with public easement access. So we've shown the easement in blue for the phase 1. And then on the north side, there's an easement in green. And that's as part of the parkland area that's within phase 1. If we can turn the next one, slide number 12. That shows the master easement plan for the entire site. And that shows the intended location of the WUNRF, which connects from Bernard through the site and then out onto Yonge Street. And that provides the access to the underground parking for the both phases. The underground parking is intended to be a full 1-story and partial 2-story underground parking. And as we know, since the KDA secondary plan came into effect, the province has identified the fact that there is no parking requirements within this area because it's a major transit area. So this also shows the area in green, which is the accessible park. And this would be a stratus park above grade. And it follows all the way along the channel to the north. It serves the back of the apartment rental building and also goes connecting to Yonge Street. So that connects pedestrian access all the way through.
Okay, Mr. Manette, you're out of time, but if you can just wrap up. That'd be
Okay,
great.
well, I'd be happy. I think you have a fairly good idea what the project is about and what the phase 1 part is about. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, so we don't have any members of the public signed up to be delegations online, and we don't have anybody in the seats. So I'll go straight to council. This is in Ward 2. So what we're going to be doing tonight, obviously, is making a motion to receive all comments here and send them back to staff. That's the purpose of this meeting because it's a council public meeting, not a regular council meeting. So Councillor Thompson, I'll let you go first and see if you want to move that motion to refer comments back to staff.
Thank you very much. Yes, I will move that motion because I definitely have a comment, and the comment that I really have to make is that this is also premature that there really is no meat for us to make any comments on. You know, I'm looking at the purpose statement, and the purpose says that is a request for comments concerning a zoning bylaw amendment application to, one, remove the open space ozone overlay, to establish site-specific development standards, and three, remove the holding provisions. So if I look at the open space overlay, my understanding is that currently it restricts building in certain areas that would normally be related to stormwater management, drainage areas, floodplain protection, buffer zones for creeks and wetlands, natural heritage, public pathways, green linkages, visual open space, separation between developments, all these different things. That's my understanding as to what the current restrictions are all about. So I got to ask staff, I mean, would I be correct in understanding that what the applicant is seeking is for the city to allow development closer to those areas that were previously meant to stay open or protected? I just want to make sure I'm correct on this.
Through the chair to Councillor Thompson, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. So everything that I can make now would only be hypothetical in terms of comments. I mean, I could say, you know, that it's the removing the overlay or reducing it. It's either going to diminish the natural or visual buffers between buildings and adjacent areas. It's potentially limit future public access or green connectivity, and potentially increase stormwater runoff, or at least change how the drainage is managed. I mean, that's, again, that can only be hypothetical because we don't have anything here to really comment on. So I don't know, I guess we're waiting for other information, but in the meantime, we don't have anything, in my opinion. So it also, no, Mr. Manette, you don't get an opportunity here. As a matter of fact, you could sit down if you like. So site-specific development standards. At this stage, the report doesn't clearly outline those details, so it's difficult for council or the public to gauge the true scale and impact of what's being proposed. I know that staff are only looking for comments at this point, and sure, we could all go back and look at what came up previously at some point, and I'm not even sure if we actually had an actual site plan. I don't believe we ever did, or an application. So it's kind of hard to go back and try and compare something when there's nothing really to compare to. Although I understand that Mr. Manette had actually proposed something in 2019, but I think that amendment was about buildings only, if I'm not mistaken. So again, I'm kind of at a spot where why would we be looking to change anything at this point, and why? And I don't have any information on that. And then if we're looking at the removal of the hold provision, my understanding is that the H provision is essentially a pause used by the city to make sure that conditions like servicing, traffic improvements, environment measures are all in place before construction ever proceeds. So I know in some situations, you know, removing a hold can really be just a formality when all preconditions have been met. But the draft bylaw doesn't specify what those conditions were, nor does it confirm that they've been satisfied. And I was unable to find anywhere in the report that stated that these preconditions are what they might be. So again, it makes it difficult for anybody, whether it be us, the public, to comment on this. And it just seems to me that we deserve a careful review to make sure that all these things have indeed been met. So while I understand that basically we're being requested to comment on customized zoning standards that the applicant is seeking, I find that we just don't have enough information to provide any comments that would be useful at this point. To me, this is almost a waste of everybody's time. So those are my comments. This is way too premature, in my opinion. I'd love to hear what everybody else has to say.
Okay, thank you. I need a seconder for that. Councillor Shu, and then Councillor Tree. Go ahead, Councillor, do you want to make a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before making any comments, I just want to clarify something first. It seems that there's a zoning bylaw amendment application here to remove the open space zone overlay and leave the holding provision to allow high-density mixed-use development on the portion of this subject land near Young Street, right? But at the same time, the city's COA, the Committee of Adjustment, approved the application submitted by McDonald's restaurant for a lease extension at the same time on the same subject land and needs more space for parking. So that means, based on my understanding, it had created a conflict between the two approvals, right? Am I understanding correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Shu. So the Committee of Adjustment application for the lease extension as it relates to the McDonald's building was approved by the committee, but it was appealed by the applicant. So that's currently ongoing. So that will be resolved in due course, and that will implicate this application. This application seeks to develop the whole site. So we are in the initial stages of this review. This particular application is very scoped in terms of what it's proposing to do. The land use, high density, mixed use, residential, commercial, has been established on this site in accordance with the secondary plan and in accordance with the zoning bylaw 11117 previously. So in terms of a mixed use, high density residential commercial development, that has been established. It was established as part of the Young Bernard secondary plan. We're looking at very discrete issues that weren't available to the city at the time when the Young Bernard secondary plan was being reviewed and approved. There was a different concept plan. As you all well know, the devil is in the details. So the applicant has proposed a different concept, and it appears that they need some relief from the bylaw for certain components,
Okay.
as outlined on page 9 and 10 in terms of the comparison. In terms of the overlay, as identified, the overlay was applied to the site to protect the channel to the north. And in the event that there was the ability to reduce that overlay, and in the case, remove it entirely, and it is subject to review of technical studies, natural heritage evaluation, a geotechnical evaluation, all of which have to be done to the satisfaction of the city and TRCA, which are being done as part of this exercise that is in front of us. So there's a zoning component that is seeking relief to address these things. And as outlined in the staff report with respect to the removal of hold, staff are recommending that is in fact premature, that it go through a separate process because the conditions are identified of what needs to be achieved as part of the removal of hold, I believe on page 11. And those things cannot be achieved at this time. So we've outlined in the report that should come forward as a different application at such time when it's appropriate.
I see, understood. So through Mr. Chair, so that means the only way to resolve this situation is to get the approval by the council to resolve this situation. If this application will be approved by the council, that means we have to override the decision of COA, right? Am I understanding correctly?
Through the chair, no. So the Committee of Adjustment a decision was appealed, so it's not in full force and effect. So pending that resolution of that, it will determine whether that lease extension happens. And then over top of that, it's the approval for these lands to develop as proposed. It doesn't override per se, because there'll be a decision of the tribunal with respect to whether the appropriateness of the lease extension. So if the lease extension is granted as part of the Ontario Land Tribunal decision, then the applicant will be required to revise this plan in accordance with that decision.
Okay, so it's McDonald's the only one asking for lease to extend, but not Tim Hortons anymore now, right?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, so my last question is how long they're asking for to extend the lease by McDonald's? How long for the lease extension they're asking for?
My understanding through the chair is it's till 2037.
Wow, okay. But as you know, when the builder, they start planning to start building there?
So through the chair to Councillor Chu, we don't know. This is only a zoning bylaw amendment application. A site plan application has not yet been submitted, which usually is the kind of further detailed review and usually leads to the building permit issuance. So at this point, this is very early in the process. We don't have a timeline. And as you know, we can't compel people to build at a certain time.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for clarification. There's all my comments, and actually, I don't have any comments. Just want to clarify something. Thanks, Ms. Chair.
Okay, Councillor Tree.
Yeah, I do have one concern here I want to bring up earlier, because I see this stage A actually is not facing Young Street, actually it's behind. So this KDA plan with FSI 5.0. So far, this plan, the phase 1 is around 3 point something. Yeah, based on the current KDA regulations, yes, it's compliant. My big concerns as our planners or planning team as I mentioned, in the future, if phase 2 coming up, because it's facing Young Street, if you approve a high density at the back of this area, then facing Young Street and Bernard will be high density. So cross the street on the other side of Bernard, which is Cannon Hill and other areas, which is we already have seen tons of high density plan there. So if in the future, phase 2 come up, sum up phase 1 and phase 2 together, the FSI might be reached to 6 or 7, even 8. So that is my big concern. So far, I believe when the planner from our private owners propose this plan, they give us maybe a little bit lower densities, lower FSIs, but that one, maybe this is their strategy. So in future, if suddenly we approve phase 1, yes, it's compliant, no problem, and phase 2 become high density, 30 or 40 stories in front of Young Street, we're gonna into trouble. So that is my biggest concerns. So I haven't seen the phase 1 yet, but based on phase 2 yet, based on the current plan, I'm assuming the phase 2 definitely has higher storage, has higher FSI and densities. If we end of the day we sum up 2 together, then we're in trouble. So I would say consider the phase 2 as well. Maybe they use some different strategies. Just propose a low density for us first, and later on become bigger one. So I just put this as a maybe a warning to all us together. Thank you.
Okay, Regional Local Councillor Deputy Mayor Chan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you, staff, and thank you, Mr. Manette, for representing the applicant. I'm looking at this particular area, and there's a number of appeals going on. In fact, it caught my attention on the very last sentence on page 13. The current active appeal at the Ontario Land Tribunal might impact on this proposed development. So, which meaning that zoning specific standard that the applicant may be seeking may potentially have to modify, change, whatever. So help me understand, through you, Mr. Chair, from staff, I don't seem to see what particular advantage or what particular things that may make a difference to the applicant were in the future, not today, what they're requesting today, this minor, I do notice, is a minor zoning amendment agreement with chief, because there's so many subject to changes down the road, potentially. To you, Mr. Chair.
Through the chair to Councillor Chen. So to be clear, the OLT decision, if you will, that would truly impact the site as it's currently constituted is the one with respect to the lease extension for the McDonald's. We've set up applications, and you'll see them coming through over the next little while, that actually amends both the parent bylaw and the new bylaw, so as to allow for interim development to happen. So everything doesn't stop with respect to the appeal of the comprehensive zoning bylaw, right? So if it is appealed, today is the last date of appeal. If it is appealed as of tomorrow, it's not in effect, and the existing underlying zoning still continues to apply. So The applicant is proposing to amend 11117 so as to allow for the development to proceed. The one, like I said, the one thing that is impacting the ability of this application to proceed will be the decision as it relates to the Committee of Adjustment and the lease extension, because that keeps the McDonald's building on the site.
Thank you. So on the same page, in the staff report, it also raised concern about this particular proposed private road. So I just want to highlight that as comment. But I have to say I share the local councilor comment that I personally seem to feel this is premature because there's so many moving parts, so to speak. So if you remove holding, which not the decision for today, for comment, what really would accomplish in terms of moving along? That's would be my comment, and I'm not hearing any. My colleague might have second motion, maybe it has. Yeah, if it's Councilor Shu, you second motion already. Okay, that's right. So here, those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, go, sorry, Councillor.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I'm not clear on, I don't think that we've been asked to remove a hold before. Can you explain briefly what the hold is, why we have it, and why would we remove it?
Through the chair to Councillor Davidson. So in this instance, a number of lands were in the Young Bernard KDA area were placed under a hold to ensure that because it's a intensification node, so it was to ensure that the adequate infrastructure and services were in place, so that in the event that everybody came in all at once to develop, we'd have to ensure that we had adequate capacity. Case in point with the Elgin Mills Road crossing, to ensure that we had adequate capacity in the area to accommodate all of this intensification. So we placed holds on the lands and I outlined on page 11 are the conditions of that hold. Section 36 of the Planning Act allows you to place a hold subject to meeting certain conditions, and when those conditions are satisfied, you are able to remove the hold. It's under a different section of the Act, and you usually actually don't see, you usually see a report, doesn't come to a public meeting, which is why we're also recommending that it goes through a separate process. It doesn't require the same notice provisions as a typical Section 34 zoning bylaw amendment. And there's a number of conditions that at this time, the applicant cannot meet. So that component of the application is premature. So I would say to you, that's probably why you're usually not used to seeing these in front of you at a public meeting. They usually come forward with a report saying how they've satisfied, and the bylaws passed with no appeal rights.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So those infrastructure questions, I mean, not only has council not seen a report that satisfies all those things have been met, but it's probably not something council would necessarily see anyway.
Through the chair to Councillor Davidson, you would. Staff are required to demonstrate how the hold provisions have been met when passing the removal of hold. So that would come forward as an analysis of here are the conditions, these are how they have been met.
So there's still time needed. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, I'll just make a few comments. So we've said quite a bit today, and I don't have a lot to add, but I guess this is a little bit like untangling the plate of spaghetti. I think there's a lot going on in this, and I find that frustrating because these particular lands were one of the group that took us to the Ontario Land Tribunal when we passed the Bernard KDA plan. So once that plan was passed and all of the issues were resolved, are there issues that we're dealing with today that have already been resolved with that OLT approval? Are these new issues? Are they the same issues that we're now dealing with again?
So to the chair, a little bit of both. So for example, one of the issues that we discussed as part of the Young Bernard secondary plan was the road alignment through this site, whether it was public or private, whether or not there would be signalization on Yonge Street, and the alignment of this road on the other side of Yonge Street, for example. In the current alignment of the proposed road currently, that is of question again. And we will be, through the review of this application, we will be affirming our position on that in consultation with the region of York. Similarly, with respect to the overlay, there was overlay, the open space overlay for the lands to the north. One of if you will, one of the agreements we made as part of the approval is that if appropriate, that overlay could be reduced or removed entirely should the technical studies warrant that removal or reduction. And that's actually currently being contemplated and reviewed currently by both TRCA and city staff. So there's a few things that have been addressed previously that we're kind of revisiting. Some things were, punted forward to an application like today that we're facing, and where the technical studies could be submitted for review and to determine the appropriateness, that at the time of the secondary plan, we wouldn't have been able to do that.
Okay. I find this is really convoluted and all over the place. But I mean, I'm not going to go too far down this road at the moment. But I do find it frustrating that if we've already adjudicated on certain issues and we spent money going to the Ontario Land Tribunal, defending our position, we won, and now we're adjudicating the same items again. That seems like a monumental waste of taxpayer money. Clearly we rely on staff to, do the best that they can with regard to these applications. And I fully realize that, we don't always have the cards stacked in our favor, given the way the Planning Act works and so on and so forth. But, I think we've got lots and lots and lots and lots and lots going on at the planning department right now. And it really bothers me to think that we're going over the same ground, more than once, because frankly, we don't have time for that. So if I'm correct in those assumptions, and again, I'm just going to throw this is a time for comments. So this is my comment. If we've already gone down that road, so to speak, about the road, and we have made a decision on the way that's going to be, I'm not really sure, unless there's some gigantically radical thing that we never thought of before when this all went to the OLT. I'm not sure why we're really, we have a plan. We have a plan in place, and we spent a lot, of time in the last term of council. I was on council at that time. I know it was a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of public consultation, a lot of everything to come up with this plan. And if we're not going to be following the plan now, what was the point, right? So, and I'll just say one other thing, and this is to some members of council. Having said all of what I just said, and if I'm saying something wrong, correct me, but realistically, it may be premature, but we can't ignore it, because if we ignore it, the clock will just run out and we'll be at the OLT all over again. So that's the way it goes here with the Planning Act in Ontario. So we do have to, make sure that we're doing everything we can to come up with a resolution. But at the same time, I think we also need to be firm on what our plans were. So anyway, that'll be it for me. Unless there's anybody who wants to speak on a second round, we have a motion before us, and we're going to refer all of the comments back to staff as a result of that motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. And we need a motion to adjourn. Councillor Liu, Councillor Davidson, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thanks very much.